The first session is titled Skills and Strategies to Supercharge Your Leadership. The future is coming fast, and in such a dynamic environment, the ability to adapt cannot be ignored. With traditional social and biological hierarchies being replaced, the culture of the future is one in which ideas and values can come from anyone and anywhere. Now I am pleased to introduce our panel speakers, global leaders who will share their perspectives on what it takes to evolve now to make ourselves future-proof. May I please invite our moderator for this session, Mr. Nimal Manuel, Managing Partner of McKinsey Malaysia, to the stage. Yang Amat Mulia Tengku Zatashah Binti Sultan Sharafuddin Idris Shah, Founder Advocate Zero Food Wastage and Say No to Plastic campaigns, Royal Patron Make-A-Wish Malaysia, and President of Alliance Francaise Kuala Lumpur. Mr. Leon Daniels, Principal, Leon Daniels and Associate, until recently Managing Director, Surface Transport at TfL, Transport for London. Ms. Richi Naithani, President, Naithani-Today Software System Private Limited from India. And Ms. Maya Ito, Partner, Attorney at Law, Nishimura and Asahi from Tokyo, Japan. Mr. Nimal, the session is yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a good morning. It's my distinct pleasure to be here today to introduce this illustrious panel and to kick off this session today on leadership. There was a very long title for the session. I'm going to simplify it. So I've asked my fellow panelists to talk about two topics, leadership and renewal. And these two topics are very important and they go hand in hand because, as you know, you're in the front lines. Our industry is going through so much change, so much disruption. Classical thoughts of leadership are not sufficient. There's got to be leadership, but also an adaptability to face the disruptions we are constantly facing. Now, before I start and hand over to my panelists, I wanted to just share one story, which I think is important, and I'm happy you guys are here celebrating Women in Rail. So in McKinsey, we research pretty much everything. Anything that can be researched, we try and research. And one of the things we've done is try to correlate what differentiates successful companies from less successful companies. And there's many factors. But one of the statistically significant factors is the number of women that are present in senior management and in board. So board representation of women and senior management of representation of women are huge predictors of A, more successful companies, and B, companies that have a higher probability to weather disruptions. Now this is important and interesting, and we try to understand why. And it's a question of, women are smarter, obviously. But beyond that, women bring a diversity of thinking, a different perspective. And that's so important in any company, in any industry. Which is why I think it's so important you're doing this today, and when Natasha comes back, that Natasha is kind of bringing all of us together. So with that, I'm going to start this session. We're going to do it in three parts. First, I'm going to introduce each of our panelists to share a bit about themselves, how they think about leadership, as well as how they think about women in leadership. Number two, I've got a couple of prepared questions, which I've shared with our panelists, so they should be fully prepared on the same topics. And then we want to end by introducing you guys to ask questions to the panelists. None to me, just to the panelists. So with that, I'm going to start off with Tengku Zatashah. She was well introduced just now, but I want to highlight 2 points. She's the founder, advocate of two initiatives near and dear to my heart. The first one is zero food wastage, and then the second one is say no to plastics. And I was just sharing with her, in our household, it's the kids who are leading the way. So my children have told me we can no longer use single-use straws. We can no longer use single-use plastic bags, I'm sure you're very happy about. But with that, let me hand over.
Thank you so much. Can everybody hear me? So my name is, thank you for the introduction, Tengku Zatashah. I'm the founder of Say No to Plastic and Zero Food Wastage. These two campaigns that I started in 2016, but that is just something that is very close to my heart, and it's a cause that I really believe in. And I said, you know, a lot of people tend to sort of rant on their Facebook if they're not happy about something, and I said to myself, no, it's not for ranting. If you want to change something, you've got to go out there and do something about it. And it can be something really small, but it really started as something that, you know, I wanted to show on my social media as a campaign to raise public awareness. And so I went out there to show, you know, how to make change to say no to plastic and to stop single-use plastic. In 2016, plastic was not on anyone's mind in Malaysia. But I knew about it because I read a lot about National Geographic, I love to dive, I love nature, and I knew that plastic pollution was becoming a real issue. And why, you're probably wondering, why am I sitting here in Women in Rail talking about plastic and leadership? It's because I use two hashtags within my social media, and one which is walk the talk, and two, lead by example. And this is the thing that I like to share with the leadership. And especially to women, is that you've got to show leadership, you've really got to go out there and do it. So I wanted to go and share how I changed my life by bringing my tiffin, by bringing my metal straws, and I kept plugging this, and I often say I sound like a broken record saying this time and time again. In 2016, Malaysia, and still to this date, we are 8th world's worst plastic polluter. And this is something that nobody was talking about. So when they did this TN50 youth canvas, they interviewed 2 million Malaysian youths. And in the environment chapter, there was nothing about plastic. So I really knew I had really my work cut out for me. So I went to a lot of universities, I did loads of talks, I went to schools. And this thing went viral, and people slowly understood this issue about plastic pollution. And now today, I'm telling you, this campaign has completely exploded in the sense that whenever I do a beach cleanup, and I organized just a couple of weeks ago a Selangor beach cleanup in Pantai Morib, most of my eco-warriors, and I call them my army of eco-warriors, most of them were young kids as young as 10 and 11 years old. They're the ones that told their mom and their dad, we want to do this beach cleanup. So the parents are like, oh, okay, we'll do this beach cleanup. And I'm like, those are my junior eco-warriors. They post on their Instagram why plastic is, single-use plastic is bad. And this gives me a lot of heart and inspiration, because the leadership doesn't have to be you're set in your, executive stage. It can be as young as 10 years old, and you can lead the way. You can be a trailblazer at any point in time. And I did not know how much it would kick off my Say No to Plastic and Zero Food Wastage, which is about saving surplus food to be able to feed those in need. When I started it in 2016, saving surplus food from hotels and from supermarkets, this year, 2019, we have reached a milestone. In 1 month of Ramadan, we collected 10 tons of surplus food to feed over 11,000 people. And since I have started Zero Food Wastage in 2016, we have managed to save nearly 800 tons of surplus food to feed over 21,000 people. And that would have gone to the landfill. And so when I talk about leadership, it's really that you have to believe in yourself, that you are able to lead by example, and you can make that change just like a domino effect. Leadership is not about it being elitist or being, the top of your game. You can lead in your own way, whatever way. And so this is why when I said to Natasha, I'm not in rail, but she's like, please talk about leadership. And that is, for me, what I really believe is that by leading by example, you can influence your friends. In fact, some of the student university volunteers were asking me, but princess, we're not a princess. We're how do we make that influence? How can we create that change? I said, well, you talk to your friends, you get your friends on board, and your friends become your class becomes your school or your university. And if you can change your university, and you can change your parents and the way that your lifestyle is and your mindset, and you can change your community, and that is what it's all about. It's about changing step by step. And if I'm able to lobby with some of the businesses to make change in, to be better, why not? I'm not going to stay quiet. I'm going to go out there. And this is what we mean by leadership. Is like one of my favorite quotes, I think, is from Michelle Obama, and I read her book, like Natasha said, so I think we've all read her book, right? So when I read her book, and it was like, success is not about the money that you make. Success is about the impact and change you can make in people's lives. And I really believe in that. And in terms of, I'm also a corporate director. I have a corporate life as well. It's not just about charities and causes, and I give as much as I can to that as well as a corporate board director for a public listed company. And I started from the beginning, I started as the rookie, as the intern, and you got to work your way up. Nothing's handed to you on a plate. In my whole corporate career, no one has ever known my background. It was never Tengku Zatashah, it was always Zatashah Idris. That was how I believed in showing performance and believing in myself. And there have been plenty of naysayers in my corporate career. Why are you going to live in France? You're not French, you're never going to get a job, blah, blah, blah. I mean, a lot of people were saying really negative things to me, and I was like, this is my dream. You're not going to take away my dream. So if my dream is to do this and I want to follow it through, then follow it through. But your dream can be achieved, but it doesn't come, for free. You've got to work hard. And hard work is what we need to tell the youths now. Nothing just lands in your lap. We're not all going to be the next Zuckerberg. That's really like a chance in a lifetime sort of story. But you've got to work hard, and you've got to be persistent, and perseverance has to come in to really, you have to do things with integrity, with honesty, and you have to empower yourselves and empower others as well. So like what Natasha is doing with this Women in Rail is that, we are able to share our, she wants to give back to the community, to inspire other young girls in this very male-dominated industry. And I'm sharing here with the two lovely young ladies on the side here, so I'm looking forward. But with leadership, it's key that we really empower others, but also in believing in yourselves, that you can be up there at the top of your game. And I hope that answers some people's questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Zatashah. Lead by example, and also one thing which you didn't mention, but I hope came true, having the passion. And I think if nothing else has come true, that passion has come true. Whatever you do, have the passion to be as much as you can. Next on our panel is Mr. Leon. Leon Daniels used to be the head of surface transport at TfL, Transport for London, and now your own advisory organization. And in that context, Leon Daniels actually spent some time in Malaysia as well. He was in Penang this weekend. So with that, over to you.
Thank you, Nimal, very much. Thank you. And good morning, everybody. Isn't it fabulous to see so many young people in the audience? Now, the older I get, the younger the audience always seems. But today, really great to have lots of young people in the audience. So some of my friends back at home in UK, when I told them I was coming to the Women in Rail conference, they just looked at me a bit strangely and said, but you're not a woman. But you don't have to be, because what you need in all life is a blend. And here's the blend. Here is the future of public transport in the future. Just look at this panel. I'm the only man on it, and that's the future of public transportation that you can all look forward to. But those people who ask you those binary questions are clearly demonstrating the attitude that we have to work hard, to overcome. And that attitude about why somebody like me would come to a Women in Rail conference, it varies by location, it varies by area, it varies by a whole series of influences. But it doesn't matter. Our job is to make sure that we overcome them. And I strongly believe something else, that the people who work in transportation should reflect the mix of the people who travel in transportation. So in the UK, 59% of our users are women. So it's perfectly reasonable to want a similar proportion of women to be running the transportation system, because you want the management and the workers to represent the users. And I think that's very important. I also spent some time thinking about the really strong women that I've encountered in my life. And in fact, 2 jobs ago, I worked for an organization where the chief executive bus was a woman and the chief executive rail was a woman. And I thought very carefully about the sorts of strengths that they had. For a start, they had huge enthusiasm, absolute huge enthusiasm and dedication. They had really a high level of positive thinking. They were thinking what we call in English a glass half full rather than a glass being half empty, so they were positive and they were very, very determined. And they certainly were never, ever slow to challenge the conventional thinking, and whenever there was obstacles to be overcome, they charged right through them. And they were attributes of strong women who were running the UK's biggest transport conglomerate at the time. And there was one other thing that set them apart from their male colleagues, is they were completely familiar with new technology. So, they were able to operate the PowerPoint, they were able to use all the features on their mobile phones, so they were very tech savvy. So all those qualities, I think, are hugely important for women to progress in our industry. And we were talking, because we were all together at dinner last night, not only just about women in transport, but all the underrepresented groups across transportation. So we can't just think about women in transport, we also have to think about all the other underrepresented groups as well. And across the UK, we have a huge number of skill shortages. In engineering terms, we're short of quantity surveyors, we're short of project managers. If you've been following the UK news, you'll know we're short of prime ministers. But we expect to get that resolved. Quite soon. And also, we must make the opportunity to push women, especially in jobs where they're typically underrepresented, which is especially true in civil engineering and other forms of transport engineering, to put them into prime positions. We had a case in London in my time where we had the imminent collapse of a road flyover. And one of the greatest things to do was to throw some really good women engineers into that project, because that's a once-in-a-lifetime project. Very few people get the chance to do the civil engineering work necessary to rescue and renew a constructed flyover from the 1960s that was in danger of collapse. And another thing just for us to reflect, and these are UK numbers, but I'm sure they translate across the world, is that transport seriously is underrepresented in women. So in the UK, in the legal profession, 53% of lawyers are women. In the health provision services, 52% of people working in healthcare are women. In our civil service, in our government, 41% are women. In transport, it's 23%. So we're a long way behind where we need to be compared with other organizations. Out there in the private sector, there's some more important numbers. Companies that have got a majority of female board members outperform those that have no female board members by 56%. So a majority of women on the board of a big company makes it a better, more profitable, more successful company than those that don't. Companies that have on their boards at least 2 women are 20% less likely to go broke than those who don't. So the statistics are very clear. Adding women into underrepresented organizations, underrepresented industries, means a greater chance of success. So it's not just that it's morally right, of course it is. It's not only that they should represent the people that we carry, it is actually financially more successful for companies. So here's a short list of some good things that employers, public and private sector, can do. The first thing they can do is to use intelligent titles in job descriptions that are being advertised. If the job title implies that that they're looking for a male, then that's all you'll get as applicants. So number one, intelligent job titles, using the right language that makes it clear that women are encouraged, not just men. Employers should consider job applications that are anonymized in such a way that it's not possible to know the gender of the candidate for the first sift. so that people are chosen from the first sift by their qualifications and by their experience, not by gender. The organization must show itself as a flexible, friendly, good place in which to work, because there is an unconscious bias in selection. People recruit in their own image. And for all the statistics we've already talked about, that means there's a higher chance of unconscious bias, a higher chance that men will recruit more men into the business. And then also to move outside the immediate catchment area to encourage women from different backgrounds to apply. But recruiting is one thing. There's also retention. So it's really very important that retention, and so we have to promote flexible working. We have to demonstrate that talented women in the workplace will get on and make more progress. It will be about making sure that it's an organization that continues to give opportunity, which I think is very important, and obviously helping people return after maternity leave is critical with employers. Women are entitled to go back under UK law into the job that they vacated temporarily in order to have their children, but recognizing that time moves on, there are things take place inside a business, but it's important that women know that they can come back to the same job that they left before. I was asking earlier today also about women in certain jobs. So I understand here in Malaysia, the first female train driver first arrived about 10 years ago. Well, in UK, we're not much better. It was 1978. Before then, women were not allowed to drive trains. They weren't allowed to drive buses. So we've come a really long way, but not far enough, and there's a lot further to go. And in London, we have some super spectacular women. The Crossrail 2, our new major civil engineering project for Cross London Rail, is a woman. The person in charge of the tube crisis control room is a woman. They're in some very senior positions in London now, and more to go. But let's not remember, they had to overcome that unconscious bias because those jobs had always been filled by men in the past. So there's a message here, especially for the young people. How transport develops is actually down to you. Not down to me anymore, it's down to you. Because this is your career and your opportunity, to make a difference. You'll always be supported. This topic of women in rail is so important, even the international trade body, the UITP, thinks it's so important that the Secretary General is here in person and will be speaking this afternoon. But to all those young people here today, your chance to make sure that empowered women rightfully get the key jobs in the transportation industry. Whether that's in engineering or management, whether it's at the cutting edge or whether it's in the back room, it's critical, but it's your choice and your future. A message to you now, which I can say, which I couldn't have said previously, don't let the employers off the hook. Press for your right, press for change, and use all your skills to demonstrate that you're the right person. Everybody in this room, especially those young people, this is your chance to show the world how it should be done, and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Leon. One thing I do want to emphasize in what Leon said, we all think about recruiting into the workforce. Retention is equally important. And the transport industry aside, in Malaysia, women representation in the workforce is actually respectable. But as you go up into more senior levels of management, it drops off extremely quickly. And so retention and ensuring, as Zatashah said, the passion that leadership comes through, that's important. Let me hand over to Ms. Richi Naithani, who's made the trip from Delhi.
That's right.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome. My pleasure. My pleasure. Well, I would first like to begin, and please pardon my pronunciation, Selamat pagi. Good morning. Hi. I'm Richi, and honestly, I was wondering what is it that I'm doing here. There's a princess here, there's somebody from the industry, there's a lawyer sitting, and somebody from McKinsey. I'm telling you, I'm really nervous sitting here on stage with you all, but thank you firstly for having me. And I would like to start firstly by applauding each one of you over here. Thank you for being here, especially the men. I think it's very, very important that the men in the industry and across industries understand that they need to support women who are out there, who are passionate, and who want to make a name for themselves in whatever industry they're working in. I just want to tell you a little bit more about myself. I'm the middle of three sisters in my family, and when I was 4 years old, my father had to live in Kenya for work. And when I turned 6, which is after 2 years of living in Kenya, my parents decided that there were very limited options in the little village that my father was working in Kenya for education. So my older sister, who was 8 years old, and myself, I was 6, we were sent back to India to study. And our year used to be such that we would be in India all year round, go to school, and go back to Kenya for our summer vacation, which means going back would entail a 6-hour flight from Mumbai to Nairobi, and this would be just the two of us unaccompanied. It is very rough on a 6-year-old to be staying away from her parents, and I'm sure it was no less rough for my 8-year-old sister also. But I think I had to take the brunt of it more because I was a very sad, weak, underconfident person. And my older sister, who's 8 years old, she took the responsibility of ensuring that if I was too scared to talk, for example, that I need to go to the washroom, or if I needed a better seat at the airline, in the aircraft, she negotiated for the both of us so that we could have a better seat. Or if I wanted to be part of the school play but was too scared to do it, and yes, I can dance, I can sing, but I never had the courage to do so, my sister is the one who actually would negotiate for me. She would talk to the teachers, she would push me. And at the same time, we were staying with some relatives in India. It was our responsibility to make sure that the room is kept clean. After all, they have given us a place to live. So she would discipline me. She would ensure that I studied. She would make sure I cleaned my side of the closet by myself. So I feel that, this was an 8-year-old girl, okay, 9, 10, as the years progressed. She, I think, has displayed or demonstrated all qualities that are required to be a leader. That means that she empowered me. She actually gave me the courage. She encouraged me to go ahead and try things that I wanted to but was too scared or underconfident. And she, my sister, was my first interaction with a leader. So I would like to tell each one of you that you can be a leader at any time. You have to be very conscious of the fact that, are you willing to take the responsibility? Are you willing to take the commitment? Sometimes, leaders get pulled up for doing the wrong thing, making the wrong decision. And it's not like leaders know everything. I have made tons of mistakes as I have come along in my life, but I'm happy to do so because I had the courage to actually do that. So my first message to each one of you is, you are a leader if you choose to be one. That is one thing, and that's your starting point. When we talk of leaders, if you actually look up the internet and you say women leaders, the first in line would be Angela Merkel, number one. You will usually see, politicians, corporate heads who are listed as leaders. So yes, in our mind, we are waiting for a title like a manager or a CEO or vice president, so and so, and only then you consider a leader. I do believe that the title is important when you are part of a corporate culture, but the consciousness to be a leader should be there with you always. That will be your first step. And I feel that women don't make just good leaders, I think they make great leaders. And the reason is that we are born to multitask. It is an expectation from society that we are supposed to handle multiple things. We are supposed to handle aging parents, aging in-laws, the brother-in-law. Sorry, I'm kind of focusing on the in-law a little too much, but children. Women are expected to do that along with a job if they wish to hold one. And quite often, especially in the society that I come from, a woman may be allowed to continue her work provided she does not forget her responsibilities at home. I think that is one point that all women and men need to address, is that while you may be a leader in your own right, I think everybody likes to be recognized. Everybody would like some kind of a title. In order to get that title, as you very rightly mentioned, I actually completely agree with whatever Princess Zatashah is saying, is that it has to start from yourself. You have to have the passion. But just those two will not be enough. You have to create a support system around you. If you want to do well at work, you need to ensure that you take into confidence your immediate social environment. It can be your siblings, your parents, your boyfriend, your husband, your children. They need to understand your passion for moving on in life to achieve that title, that target. And once you reach a certain point, then you become more generous, and then you're working for the general better good of the world. But yeah, first you need to get up there to make, to drive other people, to drive certain targets. And once you have those people immediately around you, you've taken them into confidence and you ensure that you get their support, then be ruthless to yourself. Do not play the gender card, I would say. I have also in my previous, especially when I was really struggling in IT, I've put in 18 to 19 hours a day, 6 days a week for 12 years. So it's not easy. It never has been easy for men or women. For men also, if to reach the top, I'm sure everybody has to work hard. So nothing comes for free. But for women, you have to ensure that you have that foundation in place before you go ahead, and then do not compromise. Just do not compromise. I feel that once you get there, you have the support. Nothing is stopping you. And my one last message would be for the men. We talk about all these, this future, chaotic future, disruptive technologies. I think one disruptive phenomenon that you all have to be prepared for is, watch out, the smart women are finally coming. So you need to prepare yourself for the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richi. My wife shares your view that men cannot multitask and women can. We move on to Ms. Maya Ito, who's a lawyer by training and interestingly now involved in the Indian high-speed rail. But over to you, Maya.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. My name is Maya Ito, and I am a partner at a law firm called Nishimura and Asahi in Japan. And Nishimura and Asahi is a very big law firm in Japan. It's it's the largest actually in the Japanese legal market. And we have over 600 lawyers throughout the Asian market, and we also have an office in New York as well. And I just listened to Leon, and he said that 53% of the UK lawyers are actually women, but surprisingly, and I'm really ashamed of this, but our law firm only has 18% women, and if it comes to partners, it decreases to 14%. So we're very, very behind, and we kind of understand the reason that is behind, that we are behind, and we have to make big efforts to speed up and also catch up with the other world. And so I would like to kind of describe or explain a little bit about myself. Most of the Japanese children who grew up during the 80s did not have good exposure, or they only had limited exposure to the outside world. But I grew up in UK, And I completed my primary school in UK, and there I had an opportunity to get a broader sense of what female roles should be in the society. And on the one hand, most, if not all, Japanese women at that time, including my grandmothers and my mothers, were working as housewives. But on the other hand, in the UK, Margaret Thatcher was in office during the entire stay in my UK life. So once I returned to Japan, my mother and my grandmothers told me that you have to see how women were very active in the UK market, and you should be one of the leaders in the future Japanese market. And since that time, I have been very passionate, and I was very keen to take every opportunity that I see ahead of me to exceed that was in front of me. So in 2007, I tried to apply for Columbia Law School, and I was successfully accepted. And I've completed the LLM in 2007. And in 2016, I was named a partner at the largest law firm in Japan. And that wasn't enough for me. And in 2016, I became the first Indian practice team leader in our law firm. This is a very difficult task in the Japanese market because we have significant difference in culture with the Indian people and us Japanese people. And colleagues in our law firms like mine do not want to go out and take that role and take the risk of being in that role. So from what I heard from my mother and my grandmothers that I should take every opportunity that I stood up and took the opportunity to become one of the head of that Indian practice team. And then on, I was able to become a key person in the legal area, the legal work to introduce the Japanese highway express train and bring it to the Indian market. And this high-speed railway project is a 500-kilometer length project which runs from Mumbai to Ahmedabad, and it has started construction, and the Indian government is trying to acquire the land that is subject to the high-speed railway project. And I should mention that I did all this while raising 2 children, which in the Japanese market, it is very, very difficult because the society itself expects the mothers to take care of their own children and not leave it to someone else, like even their mothers or their grandmothers. So I did have a very hard time raising 2 children and then working as a lawyer and going to India to do all these very interesting projects. So to me, leadership for women especially, I am kind of talking based on the Japanese society, but I think it is to be willing to take the role that others do not want to take or are not willing to take. And I think I am very, very excited and very grateful to see all these young people interested in leadership, in women, because if you hold these events in Tokyo, there will be much less people in the room. And I think we would hardly see men in this room as much as this is. So I would like to support all of you, and I hope the best for you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maya. So examples from Tokyo, Delhi, London, KL. This is wonderful. So I've got about 25 minutes now, where I'm just going to pepper our guests with questions and then hand it over to the floor. Let me start by asking you all in quick turn, the doesn't need to be a politician, but it could be if you want. Women leader that first comes to your mind.
Michelle Obama.
Margaret Thatcher.
Indra Nui.
Mine is not very, my person is not very famous, but she is Kathy Matsui. She's a head of Goldman Sachs Japan. She was formerly the head of Goldman Sachs Japan, and she is a leader leading womenomics promotion in the Japanese government.
Okay, very good. So I'm going to pick on two of y'all. Don't worry, I have many questions for the rest of y'all. So let's start with Margaret Thatcher. What, Iron Lady, impressive. But what aspects of Margaret Thatcher, what leadership traits would you want to share with this crowd?
Let's not forget that she was Prime Minister a very long time ago. First ever British Prime Minister, and a rare example of a member of the leader of a country as Prime Minister. So it's a long time ago. She worked extraordinarily hard, probably had 4 or 5 hours sleep a night. She read all of her papers in great detail, made notes, fired off messages to ministers as she consumed all the briefings. Now, I'm sure there's nobody in this room who hasn't tried to wing it, hasn't read the report, hasn't read the summary, hasn't prepared a speech. She was never in that category. She read comprehensively and worked extraordinarily hard. And then she had another trait which I think is very important. Her ministers used to argue with her a lot, and you might not like confrontation. You might prefer to have a quiet, easy life. In her mind, when she was arguing with you, she wasn't arguing with you, she was challenging your point of view. She was in fact just digging and digging and digging to see if your viewpoint was superficial or whether it was sincere, whether it was backed up with facts and data, or whether it was just something that you'd thought of. So she used to like a good argument. She used to relish in the chance of challenging other people's points of view. And if she satisfied herself that the point of view that the other person was expressing was robust, then she adopted it herself. If she found that you were light on data, if you were light on fact, and you were just hoping to persuade her, then you were out. So the strong thing was an ability to challenge, have comprehensive information, and fight your corner in a strong way.
Very nice, thank you. Maya?
Okay, so Miss Cassie Masiri, I said, is half Japanese, half American, but she was a former manager of Goldman Sachs, and she is still at Goldman Sachs actually, and so we have this Prime Minister Abe. I don't know if you all know about Prime Minister Abe, but he was aware that there is currently a very rapid decrease in our population, and our country is aging. And so that he realized that the power of women is very important, and we have to bring women to the workforce. And that's where Kathy Matsui came in, and she promoted a term called womenomics, and she spoke to Mr. Abe about the importance of having women in the workforce, and she is realizing it now and to the society, and many of the companies have been having women on boards, even though it's a very low rate still compared to the rest of the world. But she is trying very hard, and she is very confident that the women will change the society. That's why I very much respect Kathy Matsui.
Thank you, Maya. So hard work, passion. Another quick series of questions for all of you. Your favorite leadership quote?
I think I just mentioned it earlier, was when Michelle said, success is not about how much money you make, it's about how much impact you have put on other people's lives. And I really stand by that, believe in that.
There's a really good funny one. Beware of this. In English it says, "Follow me, I'm right behind you." So just beware of that. It is done by some so-called leaders. They are suggesting you follow them, but in fact they're putting you in the front line and sheltering behind you. So it has a double meaning. Follow me, I'm right behind you.
It's not by a famous person, but what I really found impactful was somebody said that leadership is not about control, it is about empowerment. And I think you should believe that.
Mine is what Miss Kathy Mathieu said. She said that there is no such thing as a glass ceiling. It's just thick layers of men.
Very good. Maybe now I hand over to Tengku Zatashah. In the context of, and there's largely, I'm going to generalize, I apologize, two segments of people, both are younger than me. We've got young kids who are entering or about to enter the workforce, and you've got folks who are in industry, in, I would assume, some aspect of the rail industry, looking to make a difference. And it's not about money, it's not about wealth accretion, it's about having an impact. Bring it to life a bit for this crowd.
Sure. I mean, for me, I think it's really everybody can start with empowering, and it's not just you have to empower yourself, but you have to empower others as well. If you're able to lift up others, if you're up there already at the top of the game, you're in a senior exec position, you should be able to empower other girls and be mentors to other girls. And if you're a mentee and you're starting up and you're in secondary school and you're in university, you can also empower your friends. And I think this is what's really important, is that, you know, one of the key things when I joined Alliance Francaise is that when I, as the president of Alliance Francaise, head of the board, I made sure that there was the diversity issue in there. So I recruited women on board, and they were lawyers, they were, you know, they were already in their sector. And so on Alliance Francaise, we have 50-50. 50 men, 50% men, 50% women. And in fact, those 50% women are also Malaysians. So I really brought that diversity on board. And I believe, you know, as mentors and as men, it's important that I see the men in this room as well, because we can't do this without the guys. You know, you guys are in that position. And I think in any leadership or women conference talk, I like to see the men in there. You have such an important role to play, and to help us to help others. And that would be my message, is about empowering others as well. And I think we can all do that, you know, lift each other up. It's important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to pick on Richi now, because I like that quote as well. I do think it is about empowerment, which was touched on earlier.
Right.
Give an example, bring it to life.
You know what, I think Zatashah is mostly, very much, I think we're aligned in terms of empowerment. Empowerment can begin at different levels. We all come from different societies, you know, our starting point can be very different. And I think what I've been very lucky about is, like I said, we had 3 daughters in the family, but it wasn't like we were taught to be no less than men. There was no discrimination at all. So you don't think that we are different, in the sense that I never expected a man to pick my luggage for me, never expected for the chair to be pulled for me. I've never expected the door of the car to be opened for me. So a few things I feel is empowerment, firstly, of the mind and of the self, is very, very important. Only when you are in a confident position will you be able to empower other people. And it can be, I don't have any children of my own, but my husband and I, we sponsor girls to study, and we ensure that the girl understands that she's being empowered so that she can make a life for herself and for her children. And in India, fortunately or unfortunately, there can be so many situations where you have the opportunity to help somebody grow, and it is truly, truly amazing to see. For example, my gardener's daughter, who is ready to go to study in the UK very soon. So there are various forms of empowerment that you can do, but I feel that it begins with yourself first. And I believe more like simple things that you can relate to every day. I see it around me when it comes to empowerment. But at the same time, do not think that you're special because you're a woman. You have to understand that you have to deliver when it needs to be delivered. So no compromising.
Thank you. If you Think back 5 years, think back 10 years. Leon, for you and me, maybe we go 20 years.
Lovely, isn't it?
What would be practical, soft or hard skills you would suggest? You look back and think, wow, this really helped me, or wow, I wish I had invested a bit more time building the skills in myself, because it would have made me a better leader. And I would actually like all 4 of your views. Maybe start with you, Zatashah.
Yes, I mean, in my corporate career, when I was working in Paris at the headquarters of a top French company, what I realized is, as us women, we tend to put our heads down and work really hard, and we like to socialize and have lunch with our friends. And this was what we thought, if I work hard, put my head down, boss is going to notice. Then I realized my male colleagues were not doing that at all. They were socializing amongst the senior execs. They were doing their networking and visibility. And this is my key point to all of the ladies out there, is that we have to work like the men, to be fair. We have to be networking, and we have to be visible. It is not enough just to put our heads down and think, boss is going to notice, because this is exactly what I did. And at the end of the day, to be able to really reach and work hard is also to network and show your visibility, not to be fearless. You've got to be out there and say, you know what, I shouldn't show that I'm doing this. I shouldn't show my skill. I've got to play it down. I've got to be more. You have to be humble, yes. But you've also got to show what you're capable of, because no one's going to shine that bright light on you but yourself. And so this is what I realized from my own experiences, what I will tell other people. When you're being a board director, you've got to share that this is what you want to do. This is, if there is an opportunity for you to say, hey, I want the next board position, I'm looking for a position on a public listed company. If you don't share it to people, then people won't know that that's what you're aiming for. So you've got to be able to say it, and not just to your HR manager, but you've got to share it, and network with the other senior execs, and network with the CEO, and be out there, and to be fearless.
Two things to say, and again, especially for the young people. So one's a really small but very important point, and you all have a great advantage over what I had when I was younger. Thanks to you having one of these, you can create the world's best database of contacts. So everybody you meet, every business card that you get, every time you come to a conference, get all that information about the people into your phone, into your contacts database, into LinkedIn, and whatever. Because what you want as part of making progress is an address book full of people whose default answer is yes. Now, most people's default answer is no. Would you do this for me? No, not unless you persuade me. What you want is a default list of people who say yes. Yes, if you're asking, yes, I can. What is it? I think we all have this from Natasha, don't we? Because we're all in her database, and she said, would you come? And we said yes. So make sure that you have a scrupulously up-to-date contact database that you keep up to date. As you spend your careers, it will grow and grow and grow, and you will find, as always happens in business, always happens in the public sector, there'll be times you need some help, and you want to be able to go straight to the people you know that will help you. So be scrupulous about it. The second thing, the other more esoteric leadership thing, it's quite hard to be a leader who listens. There are plenty of leaders who talk. There are plenty of leaders who tell you what they want you to do. A really clever trick is to be a leader who listens. Because if you listen, you will learn a lot. And just because you're a leader, it doesn't mean that you can't have some humility. And in fact, if you look at the way people behave in everyday life, you'll see them using humility to their advantage. If you're lost, you say to somebody, excuse me, I am sorry to trouble you, but I am lost. That is you being very humble. That is immediately making the other person feel they want to help you, as a result of which you get a much better response. So being a leader under these conditions is quite difficult, because people naturally expect you to want to tell you what they want done. So the trick, listen, be humble, and demonstrate your leadership by getting them to feel good about the thing that you want done. which can, of course, be helping make people conclude that they want to do this not because you want it, but because they want it. And I think that's a particular trait in leadership that's worth developing.
Okay, my turn. If your question was, 5 years ago, and actually even I belong in the 10-year ago category, so 10 years ago, what would I have done differently? A lot, actually, a lot. And it's nice to be sitting here today and saying, actually I'm sitting here, but the fact is that, yes, I should have read a little more, I feel. So if you can, and the thing is, you don't really have to go out there. You have everything on your smartphone. So try and read as much as possible is one thing I would say. Another thing is, again, kind of voicing what Zatashah has already mentioned, is to be fearless. I think I have been put in positions where I was not seeking them, and I happened to be there, and I was so busy just trying to maintain a status quo that I could not organically grow something. And that is because I was a little scared. I would be one step back, not because somebody was holding me back, it was me who was holding me back. So I think that is one thing, you have to be fearless. And with regard to when you become a leader, or if you are somebody who has some amount of authority, you have authority over somebody's salary or over somebody's a number of hours that they're putting in at work, it's very important to be compassionate, because everybody is trying to make a living and the best that they can. So as a leader, or I know I don't want to mix those two words, but as a leader or as a boss, it's very important to be compassionate, especially if you are the organization yourself, or if you work for a large organization. I've noticed that people don't leave organizations, they leave rude bosses. So I think it's very important that you be compassionate, you be fearless, and read as much as you can.
Thank you. So it's my turn now. I will just go back 5 years. So 5 years ago, I was still a senior associate, and we have these annual interviews with our management team. And my colleague, the lawyers who are in my firm in the same year as me, the male lawyers several of those lawyers have been promoted at that time to a partner. So I asked my management team, why am I not promoted? And they responded, oh, I didn't know, we weren't aware that you wanted to be promoted as a partner. And I was kind of, I was shocked to hear that. And because I was working for like 300 billable hours a month, which adds up to like 4,000 hours a year. And I had a family, I had kids, and all through my career, I worked as hard as I can, but the management did not understand or did not realize that I wanted to be promoted. So I would like to tell myself 5 years ago to speak up, be brave, be fearless, and I would also like to convey that with you. Be brave, be fearless, and speak out.
Very good, thank you. I'm going to synthesize. Working smart, speaking up, be fearless, listen, read more, be more compassionate, be humble. All these, and whenever I do these kinds of forums, I always ask this because it's so much more meaningful and real coming from people's own experiences. So thank you for that authentic sharing. We've got a few more minutes, but I'm actually tempted to hand over to the audience. So we'd love to take questions for the panelists. If you look in the center of each column, there are these standing mics. So I'd like to invite anyone who's got a question for the panelists to kind of come up to the mic. Please.
I think we are still in the morning, yes? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Malaysia, Ms. Richi, Naithani. So I'm directing this question to you, especially.
Okay.
Being an Asian and being an Indian, of course, you're giving an hints that, in-laws, So how do you balance your work and life responsibilities. And again, I'm trying to be humble here, but I'm lost because I have no clue. Really, I have no clue how the women are really, can be a leader and being a mother, being a wife, and also a good daughter-in-law, sister-in-laws, or whatever. So how do you balance that?
Thank you very much. And actually, thank you. And I actually like all the women here to answer the
Yes,
questions because I think it is important. We'll start
Right,
with you, Richi.
right. Okay.
And how you balance it.
Yeah.
And then B, to the employers out here, what we could do collectively to make it easier for women to balance it.
Right. Well, firstly, thank you for the question. I think, like I said, that women are capable of multitasking, and I'm saying it without any bias at all, that they are better at multitasking than men. So that sometimes works to their advantage, that they are capable of putting in the best foot forward, be noticed, and do well at work, and at the same time, be compassionate to the in-laws, the parents, the husband, and the children. In my case, like I said, I think it was very important for my in-laws, my husband, to know that I will continue doing what I do, and that it's not like there is work is priority or home is priority. It depends upon whichever needs immediate attention. You have to give that. There is absolutely no compromise to work when it comes to it. But that cannot happen. I mean, you cannot have a peaceful home life without your partner. Number one, your partner understanding that you need to be away. I travel 15 days a month, I'm not home. So my partner has to be able to understand that. He has to be proud of what I'm doing. So there's always support. And if he is proud, his parents will have no choice. So that's what I think. And yeah, I'm very blessed, I think. But yes, like I said, it is to take your immediate social fabric into confidence, into understanding that whatever it is that you're doing, you don't have to be a leader. You can be some person who's working in your organization. It's important for your family to understand. You know, thankfully in Asia, not that I live with my in-laws, but we come from a society where it's okay to leave your child behind with your mother-in-law or your parents, and you come back to them because you need to prove yourself at work first and then become indispensable. Then the organization will work for you. If you want a creche to be opened in your company, you know, or you want some extra time off for a sick child, it can only happen once you have proven yourself. You give first, then you can expect something from the company. And that's what I have done so far. I think that's how I've been very blessed. Hope that answers your question.
Oh, okay, thank you. So as Richi said, you do need a good partner who understands your career, who will support you. And my husband, he's even better at me at washing dishes. Yeah. So I really like him. I'm thankful to him. And thank you. But also, we need a certain group of people who supports you at your work. So if I come to conferences like this overseas, there are a bunch of work that is still going on in Tokyo. So I need a group of people who understands that I have a house, I have a life, and I also have a career that I cannot miss, like these conferences. So there is a group of people supporting me and who understands me and who is very passionate about my career and their career as well. And we try to make things better at our workplace together. And it all includes men and also women. So I think that's another essential thing that you would have to have in order to balance your career and work life. Thank you.
For me, the balance in work and career is definitely prioritizing. You've got to be able to know how to prioritize what's important, what's happening, and make your day-to-day plan. I don't think of what's happening next month or next year because my calendar is so packed up. And if I think about how much I have on my plate, you'll tend to freak out. So I tend to look at it day by day, okay, what I have to prioritize today. And what is really important is actually, you've got to do what you love and love what you do. Because that is really the key thing. Once you find that secret, that the magic, like, I love what I do, I am in this because I love doing it. And for me, the prioritizing is also to be able to say, okay, I've got my causes, I've got my corporate, but I've also got my workout. That's how I relieve my stress, is by doing my dance fitness. And so this morning I'm here with all of you fantastic people, and tonight I'm going to be doing my Shabam dance fitness launch. So this is how I balance it out, and I'm not hiding any of that. I love to go to the gyms because it just makes me feel that sort of the happiness. So prioritize. That's how you're going to make it through when you have that busy, crazy thing. I mean, we are good at multitasking, but if you don't prioritize and put what is important for today and for tomorrow, then that's going to make it a lot easier for you.
Very good, thank you. Next question.
It's all the men.
I know.
It's all the men.
It's all the men.
Thank you very much. Very absorbing discussion. I enjoyed it very much. I'd like to ask, I have 2 points to make, and I'll articulate them as questions to make life easy for you. Is leadership taught? Can it be taught? Or is leadership something that grows in you? Is it instinctive? A comment was made earlier that you have to be brave, you have to be outspoken, or fearless, as you said it. I have to say, you also have to be right before saying things. As a professional engineer, in all honesty, gender has never come across our mind as an issue, because we employ people for being competent, for their knowledge, for their capability, and no professional with the right mind can discriminate and use gender as an issue. I certainly don't. I have half of my team are women, extremely competent. I never thought that I will be here talking about this issue with you. My other point is, in Malaysia, in the railway industry, there is a skill imbalance. There's a shortage of skill, and also there's a mismatch of skills. We have a lot of projects, and the question to you, if you are a leader in the railway industry, what would you do to incentivize employers to raise the bar and improve the competency of railway engineers in Malaysia? Thank you.
Thank you. Let me try and frame this question for my for my panelists. I think there's 3 important points being made, and I hope I do it justice. The first one is around just your views, leadership, where they come from. I have a belief, anyway, but I won't contaminate my belief. But is it inherent? If you're not born with it, can you never get it? That's one thought. And why don't you start with that before I go to the other 2 points? Because there's a second point then around your personal experience in terms of a technical profession.
Do you want me to repeat the questions?
Well, let me try and paraphrase and tell me if I missed it, right? So number 1 is this leadership. Is it ingrained, what have you? Number 2, especially for a technical profession, your personal experience is that it's so hard to find good talent. I'm not going to discriminate because I need good talent. But I'd love to get your opinion. Again, it's a bit unfair, maybe just for Leon, more from a technical perspective, right? And you've been more on the engineering side as well. Have you seen that, and what biases do you see? Because oftentimes, I at least come across it with my clients, it's not, I don't want to hire women. It's more an inherent and implicit bias in terms of how processes are set up, in terms of how mindsets might be, and whether you observe any of this or not in your experience.
Yeah, sorry, there's a point in here which you are missing. What I said, being a professional, and I mean professional, a professional doesn't discriminate. A professional looks at the competency, it looks at the job, at the scope of work. I need a delivery of a project, and I need those skills. And those skills could be among men or women. It doesn't really matter.
Check, got it. So let's start with those 2, and then we can end with kind of the Malaysia skill imbalance. So first question on leadership. Maybe I'll ask you, Zatashah.
I think leadership is nurtured. You know, you're not born like a young girl think, hey, I'm going to be a leader. I mean, you could bulldoze people or bully people into thinking like that. But I think leadership is nurtured. And I often say, because in Malaysia, they have this tendency to listen to the boss. We won't question the boss. Boss says this, we'll consider it as that. But I always say, look, if I'm wrong, or if you have other ideas, come to me. Say, don't be afraid to not share your opinion. And I think we, as part of the skills, is that we have to be able to share opinions. Say, maybe you've got to be diplomatic about it, of course. But, you can say it in a nice way, or say, that when I say is nurtured, you grow into that role. When I was a young kid, I was very shy. I was very quiet. It was, I was never the one talking, and a lot of people was like, wow, she's really quiet, really shy. But you grow into it, and you slowly build your confidence, and that is also from the people around you that help to build your confidence, from your teachers to your mentors, to help you think, what, the more that you have little successes along the way, the more confident you become, and then you'll become that leader, and you realize, hey, you know what, my message is landing, I'm connecting with people are listening to what I have to say, and you have to be able, just like earlier that you mentioned, you've got to be able to listen back as well. You've got to be able to take constructive criticism and feedback. And that's the only way to grow forward and to move ahead, I think, in terms of like leadership.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Richi as well.
Okay. I think it's obvious you're not born a leader. Sometimes situations make you one, and sometimes people put you in that position, as in, there are people who instill a certain amount of faith and trust in you, and it's up to you whether you take up the challenge or not. So for sure, it is something you're not born with. It is something which is nurtured. I completely agree with you. But I think anybody who, like I said, you don't have to have a certain title or position to demonstrate your leadership qualities. If I go back to well-known leaders, so to say, for example, Mahatma Gandhi, he was not a CEO of anything. He wasn't even a political party worker. He just had a purpose in mind, which was so pure that it attracted millions of people to follow him and make an exemplary movement across the world. So it is a situation, it is a purpose that you have in mind, and then it is up to you what you do with what you have been given.
Good, thank you. Now the second question was around as a professional. What do you observe in terms of barriers to women participation, in terms of glass ceilings, in terms of whatever it may be? Leon, then Maya.
So I was just going to go back to something I said earlier. So, incredibly heartening to hear a professional organization that has got a gender balance, which is outstanding. And it's wonderful and very refreshing to hear somebody say that every employee in this organization was hired for their skills and abilities and experience without regard to gender. However, I'm just going to go back to what I said earlier. We do have to work harder than that, because not every employer is as good as that. And in particular, in areas where women are underrepresented, even there you're making a choice from applicants. If people feel that the job is not meant for women, they won't even get as far as applying. So I do think we have to work very hard, even with the professional organizations. And you remember the list I gave you, intelligent job titles and descriptions. Make it very clear that the job, that you're not automatically excluded, isn't designed for men. If necessary, anonymized applications, so that the first sift gives no clue on gender, just in case the prospective employer isn't, as our questioner has indicated in his case, in case that employer has an unconscious bias away from women, because we can't always count on such an enlightened view of an application. So I think in order to get women into areas where they're generally underrepresented, we do have to do some absolute positive work in order to make sure that we get the right applications, so then we can have the right decision-making process once they're received.
I agree with Leon on that, and it's very great to hear that there is a well-balanced professional organization. But in our society, back in Tokyo, like I said, only 14% of our partnership are women, which is very sad. So we do have to make very big efforts in order to balance the system, and that's really what we need, especially for our society. And also for the Malaysian society too. Maybe it's much better than Japan, but I think we do need to, the employers especially would need to recognize that we need to balance the board, especially on the C-level jobs, have to be balanced first in order to pick and bring up great women and skilled women.
Thank you. And if I could add a perspective here as well. I'd like to think our organization is a relatively professional organization. But we've done some soul searching over the past decade or so in terms of women participation in McKinsey. And it's very interesting. About half our incoming class are women. About 15% of our partners are women. So there's a massive drop-off that happens. We try to understand why. And some of it is structural. You know, women naturally, some women want to leave the workforce, and they make choices, and fair. But we found a lot of what I would call unconscious biases within the organization. So for example, we found, and this applies to any organization, success within the organization, many things define success. One thing which is quite interesting that defines success is how many mentors you have within your own organization. How many mentors you have within your own organization. And we polled male associates and female associates, and male associates typically had double the number of mentors than women within the organization. Did the same thing for our clients. This holds true with many of our clients as well. It's not a conscious thing where you are a woman, you can't have more mentors than men. It's just an unconscious thing because there's more senior men. Men feel comfortable having mentors which are men. Women feel comfortable having mentors which are women. It's a very unnatural thing which we've now started to purposefully change. But it's things like that that we find not professionals not being professionals, but professionals having these unconscious biases that actually make it a bit harder. And so having this kind of discussion internally, I think, is very helpful around what you as an organization can do to just make it a bit easier. With no more time, but if Natasha, you permit me, I would love if there's any women out here with a question. I would love at least one question, please.
Very much for this very interesting conversation, and we heard a lot about being fearless and getting in there and be present. But obviously, it doesn't come natural to particularly the female colleagues, which maybe is the reason why the third question only is posed by a female. So my question is it natural to you, and how have you dealt with this feeling of maybe inauthenticity or imposting? You know what I mean by having like this feeling that you're an imposter in the role that you do because you're pushing out there, you lean in and all that. And how have you dealt with that feeling? And what kind of advice would you give everybody here how to become more fearless if it's not in their nature? So what can they do to start being more fearless today in their everyday life? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a wonderful question. Leon, you cannot answer. So maybe we work backwards. Start with Maya.
Okay. Thank you.
Maybe I'll finish.
Yeah, bring out your feminine side, Leon.
I think for me, I feel a great responsibility to my junior lawyers in the law firm, especially for women lawyers in our law firm. If I don't stand out now, I think my team will never be able to stand out. So that's the power that I have right now. I have to stand out because I do have a bunch of women lawyers who are very, very passionate and very skillful, and they're very knowledgeable as well. So I have to promote them in the near future to become one of the leaders in the Japanese market. But in order to do that, I have to be ahead of them in order to be the role model for them. So that's what I make myself lean in to the society.
You know, the thing is, when we say fearless, what is it that we're so scared of? What is it? I think a lot of young women feel that men will not like them if they're too bossy. That is one thing which is very unfortunate. If you get to choose, sorry to say this, between a fabulous job offer and a nice looking guy, take the job offer, like really. Okay, so that is what is being fearless, the fear of taking the wrong decision. These are the two big fears that I think typically women have, that they may not, and I'm saying this for Asia, you may not find a good match, or you know, if you make a mistake, I think society hits back at you harder because you're a woman. So firstly, be ruthless on yourself. Don't compromise that because I'm a woman, I should only perform 80%. Give it 100%, be like the men, get onto that ship, get onto the driver's seat of the train and just, you know, do it. Don't say that it's a man's job. That is one thing I think when you have to be fearless, and be fearless about not finding a life partner, be fearless about that, and of course be fearless about making a wrong decision. You can minimize it by being informed, and you know, I have also seen a lot of women leaders who are disliked, and the reason for that is because they work so hard to get there through that fat, thick ceiling of men that they become very cold, and they want to assert authority. There is no need to be like that when you're well informed and you're compassionate.
Yeah, it's okay to be shy. You know, you don't have to be the bossy or the ultra confident to be a leader. It's okay to be shy. It's okay to be quiet. But with every success, every single one of us in here has a dream and a passion and a drive and a commitment and the energy. And if you have all those skills, if you have all those elements, then you can be that leader, because, you know, with every success, and I mean every little success, it doesn't have to be, you know, headline. With every little success, you will grow in the confidence. And when you grow in that confidence, you will believe in yourself. And if you believe, you have to start to believe in yourself for others to believe in you. And if it's for me, like I believe in my cause. And if I didn't believe in my cause, then how would I be able to convert a whole lot of people to say no to plastic? And thank you, Natasha, no plastic here. So, you know, it's those little steps, and it's all about making a small step towards a big change. And that is what, you know, I think all of you or all of us in here would believe, is that if we believe in ourselves and we have those little successes, you know, you will become that leader in you because you believe in it. Thank you.
I was going to say, there is no need to fear. Actually, firstly, you do have it in yourself, and as you progress, you gain in confidence. Be brave, and actually don't be afraid of making mistakes. That's how we all learn. Children learn by making mistakes. They learn not to put their hand in the fire. They learn about falling over. So even as adults, we learn by our mistakes. It's perfectly all right to make mistakes. Well-organized organizations have a mechanism in place to make sure that you don't bankrupt the company by your mistake, and there'll be a governance process. So be brave, be assertive, and learn from any mistakes that you might make. It's all right to make mistakes, and and I promise you, having done some of the jobs that I have done, I have made some howlers in my time, and learning from those experiences are what made me to be the person that I became in the organization. So don't have the fear, have the confidence, be brave, learn from mistakes, and go and be a great leader.
Thank you. With that, it's been blinking here for a while. So with that, I think our panel comes to an end. Please, a big round of applause for the panel. I think it was really, really good.